details, but I want to go back to the first few days that you and your first wife learned uh, that this little baby that you were so braced to man up and uh, be a father, that there were going to be some serious challenges. So tell us about that.
Well, I graduated in 2006 from Crawford County High School, and it was my senior year when me and Faith's mother, Kayla, had started dating. And it wasn't long after that, like my mom would tell you, was spending way too much time with the girlfriend in alone time and times that, looking back on it, shouldn't have been happening. And my parents told me that, and I didn't listen. And looking back on that situation, I was right out of high school. I graduated high school in 2007 and '06. And then in '07, we found out that Kayla was pregnant. I found out while we were mushroom hunting. She told me this. And I was terrified, and I didn't know who to confide in. And to say that I cried a lot, not knowing what to do. But I knew at the end of the day, after praying about it, that um, the thing to do was to get married and to have this baby and to raise the baby, and that's what we did. And that had been in 2007, just 3 days after us getting married in May of that year. We found out that our daughter was going to be born missing both legs and an arm. And I don't even know how you prepare for that or how you prepare anybody for that. Um, that knowledge for us to have there through the ultrasound is how we found out in ways allowed us to prepare ourselves for when Faith got here. I've heard of stories not too long before that where the ultrasounds were not there and they found out at birth, and I couldn't imagine going through that. But I learned a lot from that, going to that ultrasound, and knowing that I didn't think it was fair. I wouldn't say I was angry at God, Steve, but I definitely didn't understand why this was happening to us, not understanding why this was going on, and not blaming God, because I don't view that it was God's fault, but just in a moment of not understanding. I think all of us as Christians have that moment, and maybe not even in the mood to read my Bible that night. I do a lot of studying and reading, and in those moments is right when we should be reading the most and studying the most and digging in. But I didn't want to read that night. And I remember uh, kind of saying we need to read, and I told her not in the mood, and her reaching over and handing me the Bible anyway, and said, "I didn't ask if you were in the mood. We need to read." And I remember opening my Bible up and it landing on Hebrews chapter 11, and verse 1 jumped out at me. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And in that moment, I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't have the answers. We were still gathering things together, trying to figure out what in the world was happening. And I don't think it was till we heard from our actual doctor, the OB doctor, had called us later that evening and had told us, exactly what we were looking at. He'd looked at the ultrasounds and the pictures, and that, the baby was going to be born missing both legs and an arm, and that there was a deformity with the other arm. And that is all they knew. They didn't know if there was anything else wrong, but they absolutely knew that Harrison County Hospital was no longer where we could deliver this baby, and that if we were wanting to move on, I remember the word he used was he started to say, "Now you have options," and I remember Kayla going and saying, "Termination, abortion, whatever you want to call it, is not an option for us." And it wasn't. It was never an option. It was never anything we thought of. It was, we're going to hit the ground running, but we don't know what we're going to face, but we're giving this to the Lord. And I know, as well, Steve, so many churches, not only in Crawford County, but around the state, around the country for that matter, were praying for Kayla and us, and that this baby would be born with legs and with arms. And we were praying for that. But at the end of the day, I feel that everybody was praying for God's will to be done in that situation. And that's what it's all about, is relying completely on God. It's not about us.
Now, Noah, I remember specifically a day at the Little League ballpark during this time. Your mother walked up to my wife, and I see him talking, and your mother is basically bearing her heart, and they both had tears in their eyes, and they embraced. And I walked up, and then your mother proceeded to tell what she had told Sharon, that you all had found out that the baby wasn't going to have all of its limbs, and uh, she said, but those kids are determined that they're going to see this pregnancy through. They've determined that abortion is not an option. And as she began, everybody just began praying, God, give him strength. But in my mind, I had an ultimate respect for somebody to be so young and starting out that was that determined. And I remember your mother said that one of the doctors in counseling with you and your wife said, really, the perspective you have to have, this little baby's going to be born without limbs, uh, but she can survive, she can thrive. And he said, you have to think of it this way: she's going to have no frame of reference to miss that which she never had. Do you remember that
I
conversation?
absolutely do. And it brings back good memories. I kind of forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. So many doctors at that time would have told you to get rid of it, and that's the God's honest truth, that a lot of doctors, a lot of medical staff didn't think it was fair that we were going to bring a child into the world in this condition. That's just the mindset a lot of them had, even more so now than then. But when they recommended us to a doctor, the doctor they sent us to was a guy, Dr. Petrie and Tony, and we all call him Dr. P. And when they sent us to him, they said, "Now you're not going to be able to get into him. He has too many high risk cases already. There's no way that he's going to be able to see you and deliver this baby, but he can give you guidance." And immediately after meeting with him, he said, "I'm taking this case on. My case is loaded, but I want to do this." I remember going in there, and the high risk doctor's office, it was over in Louisville, Kentucky, and all the babies that he had delivered, he had a wall of them. And seeing the pictures of the babies that had been delivered that everybody else had probably given up hope on. And I remember getting one of the greatest things about that was, I remember him saying that, this ain't over. It's bad, but life will go on and there's options. And that was the first time hearing that. And I remember getting to send him our first Christmas card that year with faith on it, and sending it to him. And it was on the wall the next time we went there. That's something I'll never will forget.
So do you and I chatted a little bit about this yesterday, uh, and the reality for you in the early days in that neonatal intensive care, that you overheard some whispers of from maybe the nurses or people that was to the effect, oh my gosh, these kids knew this little one's going to be born without limbs. Why did they go ahead and decide to do this? Was there ever any doubt in your mind that, oh my gosh, have we taken on more that we can handle? Or did you just resolve to have that positive, we're going to do this attitude?
I would like to think that we were always positive. Now, did we ever have moments of not understanding? We still do, of why it happened that way, and not understanding the battles that, uh, I don't want to say not fair, but it doesn't seem fair as a parent. You never like to see your kids struggle, and in those moments, I don't understand why faith has to go through those things. But I know that God has a purpose, and
So
and knowing that I'm able to get through it.
I remember Faith is now 16 years old, you told me. And
Crazy, ain't it?
she of course is in a wheelchair, but she's in a public school every day and living a good life.
She's doing really well. She's got missing both legs and an arm, and as we would come to find out later on, she was also has autism as well. And there's a lot of struggles she still has, but she does not let it slow her down, and she has absolutely every bit of personality that anybody could have. I know. I thought it was me and my mom were talking about this the other day. One time she had wasn't feeling well, and I was working third shift, and I come home from work to get her ready to go to school, and Kayla got her prosthetic legs out because she wore prosthetic legs at one time, and now that she's got older, she don't like wearing those very much. But they set those prosthetic limbs to the side out for her to get her ready, and she went over and picked him up, put him back in the closet, and laid back down in bed and covered up. She wasn't wanting to go to school, but she has that personality that any other teenager would have or any other kid would have at that age. Faith has always found a way to do it just her own way.
So that's amazing. I remember, I guess it's been 10 years ago or so, I was pastoring a church in Elkhart, and I told some of the people that story. And at that time, you had a Facebook video up of you guys playing at a playground, and she was playing, and it was beyond explanation. And I remember some of my friends I showed that video to, they're like, oh my gosh, praise be to God. So, what a remarkable story. So, you can follow Noah's story on Facebook, Noah Manship. He's going to tell us a little bit about his ministry page and church page as well to learn more. We want to fast forward a little bit, Noah, that after getting well on your way in raising this child with special needs. We don't have to go into the details,
Yeah.
but you and your first wife grew apart, and this conversation is not so much about the details of that,
Okay.
other than you shared with me that you felt totally defeated, uh,
Absolutely.
and you really questioned, wow, uh, this failure, uh, how can I go on, and talk us through the feeling of defeat and how that God kept you within His calling, and you retained your passion to let Him continue to minister through you. How can you shed light on that? Because a lot of times when bad things happen, we're prone to get up. The enemy really wants to beat us up and discourage it. Uh, but you persevered, and you're persevering and moving forward. That's commendable. So shed some light on that for us.
I, I will. In 2017, me and Kayla went through a divorce, and it was one of the things I didn't want. It happened, and it was heartbreaking to say the least. We had two kids together. We're married for 10 years. I didn't see it coming. Uh, I don't know that you ever do, but I didn't see it coming. And I moved back into my parents' house. And, I'll be honest with you, I went down a road I probably shouldn't have went down at that point of being uh, feeling defeated and beat and filled it with never did drugs or alcohol or anything like that. But I was hanging out with people I probably shouldn't have hung out with, and dated a few girls I probably shouldn't have dated, and went down that path that was not a good path. And I look back on it knowing that those things weren't good. Um, and to get through that, I was really depressed, and I tried filling it with a lot of different things. And my brother Dwayne, who I love my brother dearly, I got two great brothers and a sister, and a lot of people don't realize, Steve. I'll say this: uh, Renee is, I call her mom, but a lot of people don't realize she's my stepmom. So my parents divorced when I was two. So my dad went through this. So when I was younger, he went through the same thing I did. So my dad gave me a lot of advice. My stepmom, Renee, I call her mom, gave me a lot of advice. I had two moms that loved on me, two dads that loved on me, a family that just took me back in. And I couldn't have got through it without them. But I remember it was my brother Dwayne, who doesn't have a lot of theological background. He's not a great preacher or doing anything like that at all. But I remember Dwayne simply loving me and Dwayne telling me, I don't have all the answers for what you're going through, but you've still got something to live for. And he knew the things that I loved, and it wasn't pointing me in a direction of the Bible necessarily, but it was getting out and doing some of those things I love. We went to IU basketball games. You get me in a car and we go to a football game, or we go to he got me going back to the racetrack and doing things that I loved that I used to find a lot of joy in. And and I reconnected with a lot of people through that. And what really got me through that divorce was honestly when I can remember, sometimes you remember the day you got saved. I remember when I got saved, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. At a young age, 12 years old, at a youth convention. But in 2017, it had been quite a bit of time there after that. That was in October. I ended up going to the racetrack, and I was going through the pits at Salem Speedway, and there's a girl named Allison Schotter that was a few years older than me from Crawford County. Her,
Yeah, I remember Allie.
yeah, Allie's awesome. Allie's Allie's husband is a guy by the name of Justin Pirtle, and
Okay.
Justin, I didn't know him, but I knew his wife. And I was walking through the pits and was talking to him, and he said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Well, I'm just here to take it in, just to enjoy the racing." And he goes, "Well, I need help pushing this car around." And I got to go work in the pits with him for the Halloween 200. Now, I probably was more in the way than helping. But Justin, I don't know if he knows it to this day. I've told him, he does now, how much that meant to me that weekend to get that feeling of being involved in something you love again.
So you make a good point. No, I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit. You
Yeah,
make a good point there about how your brother was able to be an encouragement to you in spite of the fact that he probably felt overwhelmed. Man, what do I tell this guy? I don't have it. But he gave his heart to you. Just, hey, let's hang out together. Same way with Justin. I think
yeah,
sometimes we stay away from folks who are hurting because, oh, man, I don't know what to say. And I try to teach people, the folks at my church has heard me say several times, there's a key phrase to use when you want to reach out to someone and you don't know what to say, and it's simply this: you look them in the eye as realistically as you can and say, geez, man, I don't know what to say, but I love you and want to encourage you. And
yeah,
offer a relationship, a friendship, whether it's pushing a car or a walk through the woods.
yeah.
Uh, and by what you're saying, that made a major impact.
It
Uh,
absolutely did. It involved
so be
so much.
encouraged.
It encouraged me so much that I come back the next year and just spectated as a spectator in the stands with Andrew and my son Andrew, Faith's younger brother Andrew. We got to go to the racetrack and share in those moments. And we made a lot of memories going to Salem Speedway and not knowing what all would come in our ministry down the road. But that was a year, I would say, of 2018 where me and Andrew really bonded, me and my son Andrew, of bonding and making that connection again. And that helped me get through a lot of things.
So let's provide a little bit more background here, and then you can talk about how the Lord kind of uh, brought all of this together into your current endeavors. I know as a
Absolutely.
kid you had a passion and a love for broadcasting. You found a comfortable place behind the microphone, uh, in front of the crowd, or on the air, uh, and that was pretty passionate for you. I remember that young Noah that hosted some radio shows. I remember a young Noah that would go to ICFUS and just couldn't get close enough, and had a backstage pass to talk to the artist, and you loved that. So you started out your life, had a failed marriage, and eventually healed from that, and now you're remarried. In the process of that, having sensed a call early in life to pursue the ministry, you kind of drifted away from that. But in the course of time, I'm given the backdrop and you fill in the details. In the course of time, God looked at you and said, I've still called you to be in ministry, and I can use your passion that you have uh, uh, for broadcasting, uh, but also in ministry. And I know the folks at Tazewell Christian give you an opportunity to do some preaching, and from there, you found a place where you can minister that's in the close vicinity of racetrack, which is another passion that you found, a love for motorsports and racing. And God's allowed you to take that kind of a collage of a background and put it together in a way that you can minister now. So fill in the blanks. Tell us about how
Yeah.
that came together and what you're doing now.
So, like I said, in 2018, 2017, I made the connection with Justin and helped him out that one race. And then in 2018, I got to go to some of the races, and he was there. Uh, 2019 came around, and I got to meet Rob Lee. He done a lot of racetrack ministry there at Salem Speedway. And through that, Justin kind of said, hey, I know you're into the ministry. Your dad's a pastor. Rob may you be able to use your help, and I got able to do that, and those things, um, and found out later on that I'd end up getting to even broadcast some races at Salem Speedway. That broadcasting thing come in handy, and you talk about a passion I've had probably since I was about 7 years old. My mom would tell the story that I come running into the living room with her and dad, and I'm in my boxers or my pajamas, and I come running in there, and I told him, I said, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And I don't know if you remember the big mega, the microphones, the Echo microphones they made. And I told him,
My
I said, I
kids
want to be
had
a
some
ring
of them.
announcer. Wanted to be a ring announcer. And I come in and do my best Michael Buffer thing. Let's get ready to rumble, kind of thing. And automatically, that's what I always wanted to do, was something with broadcasting. And I can remember going to the ball games and listening to you announce. I can remember growing up in French Lick, Indiana, up to sixth grade. I went to the Springs Valley. So
Okay.
I had Larry Bird installed in my background there. And listening to those high school games on the radio, because sometimes we couldn't afford to go to the ball games.
By the
My
way, go
parents were busy.
Blackhawks. My nephew, Jonathan Bowles, is coaching at Springs Valley. And since I interrupted you real quick reference to your dad. Is he still pastoring?
He is. He's the pastor at Rock Springs
Still
there.
at
And
Rock Springs. So that
yeah,
gives me an opportunity. I want to do a shout out to
yeah,
your dad, and particularly the folks at Rock Springs Church near Valine. They might tell you closer to Hardingsburg, but it's somewhere in between. Uh, Very soft place in my heart for that Rock Springs Church. The very first church outside of my home denomination that I ever preached in was the Rock Springs Church. None of the people that are there now remember that. Uh, but then, as the Lord would have it, some almost 20 years later, my wife and I attended Rock Springs Church under the leadership of Pastor Doug Byram. Phenomenal ministry that they had, more than I could ever tell them, that they ministered to me and my family. That was before your dad was pastor. He came in after Pastor Doug, but I know the folks at Rock Springs love your family, and they'll be watching this. So
yeah,
I just want to give a thumbs up and God bless you, and share my love for the folks at Rock Springs. So now back to your story. You're passionate about racing and kind of putting your life back together and reconsidering your call to ministry. Take it from there.
yeah. So when we got to the racetrack and I started being able to help him out, this by this time, at the same time, this was coming on with Justin and rekindling my relationship with my son Andrew at the racetrack and making memories. I met Shelby and we started dating, and it come back full circle.
You,
Shelby got haircuts at my mom's beauty shop,
okay.
and I found out that Shelby had went through the same situation I'd went through, a divorce, and uh, we started a friendship there and started talking, and uh, we started dating and got married the following May. Or sorry about that, the following June, and then the rest is history. But Shelby is the reason I'm able to do all the ministry work that I do. She's really pursuant of pushing me to go further, and that was including the broadcasting stuff that we got to do. That includes the racing ministry, to the point that our ministry that we're doing today, we've left Salem Speedway. I was with KMO, Kentuckiana Motorsports Outreach, there at the track. Is really what got me started in the ministry again, was doing that outreach. That's where I got my feet started at again, was doing that. And we were with Kentucky Motorsports Outreach from 2019 all the way up to 2022 when we started Amazing Grace Ministries. And the whole time, that was Shelby saying, "You may not feel good enough, you may not feel worthy, but God's calling you to do it, so you're going to do it."
So
And
in the
I still have to
meantime,
have that.
just we're gonna go forward from there. But in the meantime, you're still rebuilding and reaffirming and reconsidering your call to ministry. You get a call from the Tazewell Christian Church. Do you know anybody that can come and preach for us? And you tried to send them some leads and ideas, and they kept saying, "Well, do you know anybody else?" And finally, you agreed, said, "Well, I'll come and fill in for you." And that ended up the 2 years that you were ministering and preaching every Sunday at Tazewell Christian. Uh, Kind of a sleeping giant of a church, rural Crawford County, but they ministered to you, encouraged you, uh, and from there, you're pursuing racing and got an opportunity to minister with a church near Central Illinois. So from there, that church, Central Illinois, is close to Is it Charleston Motor Speedway? Near
Charleston Speedway. It's a little dirt track, high banked oval with no walls.
Central Illinois, near
It's a back
Newton.
stretch.
Uh, so tell us how that came about, and then your pursuit of starting this new ministry, Amazing Grace Ministries. You can learn about that on
Yeah.
Facebook as well. But here's a firsthand perspective from Noah. Tell us about that.
Well, when we came out here to Illinois, we'd had the racing ministry going, and I was driving 3 hours to Salem, Indiana on the weekends, on Saturdays, and coming back Sunday morning at 2 or 3 in the morning and getting up and preaching the next morning. And we just really felt led in 2022 that God was calling us to do outreach here where we're ministering at. And I had called Charleston Speedway in 2021, and it just didn't work out. They didn't know what they wanted to do there. They were looking for someone, but I pursued them again in 2022, and more prayer went into that, and they were looking for somebody. And they said, "Well, we will bring you in as a chaplain and have you pray with our drivers and really do our invocation at the beginning and pray at the drivers meeting." And he said, "We'll try it till June." And it wasn't about a month later. He said, "You're going to stay off season, right?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." So that brought us back this year again. But it goes into so much there with Amazing Grace Ministries. We are a racing, music, and food ministries. It's the things that we're passionate about that we here at a church at Faith Fellowship are
Wow.
getting the opportunity to pour into. It's our Christian service. I've said it so many times when I come to these churches that without outreach, a church dies. And I believe that without outreach, a church dies. The disciples didn't wait for people to come to them. Jesus didn't wait for people to come. He went to them.
So
You
tell us
know,
again now, Amazing Grace Ministry. It's a ministry. I got the food part.
racing, music, and food. My wife threw the food part in. That was the part where Shelby My wife Shelby is amazing at seeing the need of people that I don't see sometimes. You know, there's things I'm passionate about, but my wife's just as passionate about other things. And people were coming to our church and they were calling us and they were saying, "We need food. Could you buy us a meal here or there?" And it wasn't so much like food ministry, like a food pantry, but what we've come to find out is there's families that may not be church. You know, that's where our outreach is outside the church, that maybe they had the for instance, the main thing that we realized this was a lady contacted me on the phone, said, "I see that you're a pastor. My son-in-law just overdosed on heroin and died. And we are hungry, but I can't bring myself to cook." And we were able to go over there and bring them food. And through that, we ministered to about 5 or 6 families through that one thing.
Okay,
And what that
so
showed me was there was a need there that I didn't know about.
okay, so I'm trying to process in my head music, racing, and food. The food part of it is not just serving food at the
No,
racetrack.
no,
What
it
you
has nothing to do with that. Yeah.
what you do at the racetrack through Amazing Grace gives you the opportunity and hopefully the revenue so that you can conduct ministry other than at the racetrack, other than at on the property of the local church. So where's
It
the
embodies
music?
everything we do. Yeah.
Where's the music come in at? You do community
Yeah,
events, or when you
we
said
do.
when
Our
you
goal and our vision is to grow even more than that. We've done the first year we started this, you know, it's still bringing this along further term, and finances is a big thing. You know, all of this is volunteer work. So we don't get paid at the racetrack. I don't receive a salary or anything there at the racetrack. This is all volunteer for us there. People donate to our ministry and we're able to do that. Now, with the music side of things, my goal is to bring Christian music back to parks, back to churches, but mainly the parks, stuff that's outside of the church, ministering to the community. We've had 2 events. We had Faith Fest, as we called it, in July, not last year, the year before, and we had 4 Southern gospel groups here at the church play an all-day event on Saturday, and we were able to minister to about 75 people at that event. Uh, we then turned around last March and we had Ryan Linton. If you've ever heard of Ryan or not, uh,
yeah, isn't he
Lacey Slaughterback's husband, Ryan.
right? He married a Crawford County girl, and yeah, he plays at Faith Rocks
Yeah,
down in
he's not
Inglis.
only played there, he's played at events. Rock the World at Holiday World. He opened for We Are Messengers,
Hasn't
uh,
he had a song on Hit Christian Radio? Hasn't he had
he
a
has. He's
tune or
released two.
two? Yeah.
He's had 2 CDs at least out. I think is what it is, and uh, just an amazing family there. They do some amazing work. He came and played for us, and then we had a girl by the name of Chelsea Mundy was her last name. It used to be Mundy. It is now Mills. She married. He married. She just got married here a couple months ago to Alex Mills, and that family ministers at English Wesleyan. So Chelsea came and opened for him, and then we had Ryan come and play for us, and that was an amazing night where we served food at both those events, and both events we brought in over 75 people to our church, and that's pretty amazing because our church right now we run about 15, so that's pretty cool.
All right. Tell us the name of your church that you're ministering with.
Faith Fellowship Church and Mission. We run a mission here as well, helping those in need with clothes and household items, anything they could need, they can come in here and we help them. And we run that off the donations. Some people donate money into the church, and that goes back into our ministry.
So, if you want to learn more, be informed more about Noah's current whereabouts, you can find him on Facebook. You can look at the Fellowship Faith and Mission Church. That's in, how do you say that, Hidalgo, Illinois?
I messed it up too when I first got out here. Hi Doggo. Hi, and then Doggo.
Hidalgo. I made
Yeah.
it harder than what it has to be. Hidalgo, Illinois. That's near Newton, Illinois.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a friend that pastors there with the Free Methodist Church, Family Church. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Bob Sussman is a friend of mine. Near Newton, you can learn more about Amazing Grace Ministries. You have a Facebook page at Amazing Grace Ministries.
We do. Yeah, we absolutely do. Share
You'll
all the events and everything we got going on there.
So Noah is at the track. He's praying trackside with the drivers. Do you get to announce any race events at all
You,
at
so
Charleston?
at Charleston, we're working in on that a little bit here and there. That ain't my goal. It takes kind of away from what we do. When I was at Salem, I got to work with 95.3 WME and Dave Dedrick. And that was a dream come true. That was a guy I got to listen to as a kid. And that was a track that I grew up going and watching races. And, I called ARCA races there. I broadcasted a lot of fun events there. That Justin Hurdle that I talked about a little bit ago, that was racing there. I was privileged to come full circle. Like I said, I got to interview him in Victory Lane for his very first win at the High Banks at Salem. We were balling on the radio, but we had an amazing time there. But what I've been able to do at Charleston is we we do the invocation before the race. I'll go and pray with about 120 drivers is what we average on Saturdays. There over 100 every week, around 120. We would go and pray with every driver and every team through the pits as I walk through there, and then I pray with them individually in the lineup shoots as they get ready to go onto the track.
So something that I noticed on the Amazing Grace Facebook page. One is Noah posted a picture. He got a chance to pray trackside with the Smoke, the legendary Tony Stewart trackside. But even more impressive from that was some of the comments from the officials at the Speedway there in Illinois that said, "Oh my gosh, we hope you're coming back. We love to have you." Just a presence on the track to pray with the drivers. And Amazing Grace Ministries is more than just a trackside presence, trying to establish a presence in the community. Well, thank you for sharing, Noah. Uh, before we go, just maybe there's somebody listening that has experienced some setbacks or failures or just a set of circumstances beyond what they can fathom. Oh my gosh, it's more than I can handle, or a failure where they just feel like they want to give up. Uh, what would you say to them?
I've read, have this here sitting beside me. I was reading this earlier today, and nowhere in the Bible that I've read says that, there's this mixed saying that people say, well, God will never give you more than you can handle. He absolutely will. He'll give you more than you can handle, but he gives you a way to handle it, and that's through Jesus Christ. We can't face this world alone and do it on our own. And when we put our faith in Jesus, man, that's where it's at. That's what it takes to get through those times. So I would challenge everybody, in my prayer for each and everyone that's listening to this is that if they don't know Jesus, that they come to know him, because it's not too late. Give those burdens to him. That's what we're called to do.
All right, thanks for sharing, Noah. And that's what this program's all about, is giving people an opportunity to share the stories because it's relevant. And Jesus
Yeah,
can use your story uh, to intervene and communicate with other people. And it's never about what we can do, but it's a matter of what he can do when we surrender to him, and even through our lives. So thanks for
I got
sharing.
one more thing I would like to say, Steve, before we go. Um, you mentioned my mom and my dad, and those that went through that. We talked about me going through it. They went through it too, and I want to thank them, having grandparents that prayed for me, having parents that prayed for me. If you're on the outside and you're looking at somebody that's struggling, don't give up on them. Keep praying. There in Hebrews 11, when we read of those heroes of faith, what I've come to know is a lot of them died and went on before they received the promises that were promised to them, but they didn't lose their faith. My grandpa, I'll tell you this, you talked about Rock Springs. That's where my grandpa went to church at, Max Manship years ago. And he had a little rock by an old pond that he went and prayed at every day. And my dad, who wasn't saved at the time that he died, he ended up uh, praying for my dad every day at that rock. And years later, Dad would get saved. And now Dad's been preaching at Rock Springs for over 16 years.
Wow. Thanks
So
be to
don't
God.
give up. Keep praying.
Well, hey, Noah, thanks for joining me. God bless you all.
Love you, buddy.
Keep watching, and we'll be back with more guests to recognize, celebrate, and share what Jesus has done, what he's doing, and most importantly, most relevantly, get in tune to what he wants to continue to do through people like you.